you about the characters you chose to be the narrators in the novel. They seem to be the most introspective and sensitive.
Me at my most boring? It's possible.
Well, they're sort of the ones that are the most prone to these periods of introspection and thoughtful, rumination.
That could come from the structure. So I made a decision early on. So I said I had written another novel, and it hadn't nobody wanted it. I couldn't really even get anybody to read it, but someone in that process, I can't remember who, and I don't know if they knew a thing about what they were saying, but said to me, if you'd written it in the first person, it would have been published like that. If you want to get your first novel published, you have to write in the first person. This is, one of these pieces of advice that means nothing, but it really stuck in my head. Like, what if it does mean something? And so when I started this exercise of I'm going to write a novel, I said I'm going to do it in the first person, which didn't come naturally to me. And the problem with the first person is you're so limited. You've got one person's mind and what one person can see and imagine and do and remember. And so really quickly, I knew the story I wanted to tell, and I didn't have one voice that could tell that whole story. So I knew I was going to need at least two voices, and then very quickly I knew I needed a third, and then much later I came to that fourth. But it was hard. It was hard every page of the book to have a character that's saying I, who can communicate the information that I need communicated to the reader, live the action that I want happening in the novel, and talk about it. And since I wanted characters who were different from each other and not necessarily equally adept with words, it was complicated. It was really, really hard. So I think that maybe that characters feel that way to you because in their own voice, they had to do so many complex things. And now I'm working in the third person, and at least from my experience, it's so much simpler. And I can allow characters to be so much less interior because somebody else can take care of that action that I need to take.
This is very interior. I mean, we spend so much time in these characters' thoughts.
And don't you see how that I only had there?
Well, we had to. But the thing is, it was so satisfying whenever we did it. It was like we were submerged in the whole thought process, and we didn't come out until it was absolutely time to come out. That's why it was satisfying, because you spent as much time as was necessary for them to work out what needed to be worked out and then come back up. So it was very successful.
Do you remember the first time you read Mrs. Dalloway?
A while ago.
Maybe you don't care, but you're right in your head, and you're just spinning through your head.
For a long time. Yeah, it was a
word.
long time. I was much younger, so I probably wasn't as patient.
Right.
I didn't have the patience back then. I really didn't. I probably didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed reading this. I really didn't. I wanted to ask you though, when you see the finished product of this and it's working, it's one thing. But when you're writing the draft of this, do you have in your head that mantra that writers always get? Don't spend so much time in your characters' heads. Or
don't tell me anything like that. I didn't know that.
Forget I said it.
Yeah,
or did just the strength of their thoughts override any doubts? Or you didn't have any doubts?
I had so many doubts. I had so
How do you
many
write
doubts.
without any doubts?
Yeah,
the writer's bread and butter. But did it just feel like the natural way to do it?
No, I wrote maybe pretty close to the way they are now. Not exactly. No, not Roberta. Maybe the first 5, 6 chapters. So that was Avis and Bashkin and Louise a couple times each probably. And I just felt like, oh, this is rot. This is embarrassing. And it didn't matter because I was just doing it for myself, but I was disappointed. I was thinking, well, I thought I was going to be able to do better than this. But this is the best I can do, and it's so bad. And how disappointing. So I kept working through that, like, well, I said I was going to do this, so I'm just going to keep going. But I came to a point where I felt discouraged, and I felt disappointed in myself. So I gave the manuscript really tentatively, because of course it felt bad, and I don't have a writer's group, and I gave it to my husband. It's useless to give something to your husband because he knows you really well. He knows what you sound like. He's not going to criticize you. It was it's not a good editing technique to give something to your spouse, but
well, unless you're Michael Chabon and
can they be honest with each other? I don't know.
Maybe they are.
Yeah,
Maybe they're not.
Yeah, but I gave it to him because I thought, well, even if he won't tell me the truth, I'll know. I've lived with him a long time, and I will know. So I gave it to him, and his reaction was. I was so unprepared for his reaction because here I am all prepped. He's going to say something nice, but I'm going to try to read how bad it is. And he said something like, "Do you have another chapter?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, I just need another chapter. Can I just read like one or two more?" And I thought, oh.
It's a pretty good reaction.
It really caught his attention. I could tell it really caught his attention, that he wasn't even bothering to say he liked it or he disliked it. That's not very much, but it was enough for me, because then I said, okay, his attention is caught. I wanted someone's attention to be caught. It's working even if I can't feel it. And it was really not until after I got past the sort of climactic action in the middle, not until I got through those chapters, that I started to feel like I could hear when it was good or bad. That I understood it well enough that as I was writing it, I might not edit it out right that second, but pretty quickly I would get rid of it because I could feel it going wrong, or I could feel that it was dead on. Up till then, a lot of times I just felt like I was just putting one foot in front of the other, and that little bit of encouragement got me, the next day.
And before then, you just felt like you were just swimming
I just couldn't believe how bad it was. I would write those chapters in Boschkeim's voice, and I would just think, oh, this is just cringe-inducing. I would cringe. Only the other thing that would happen is I'd be writing it, and sometimes I would be cringing, but then other times, this is maybe later in the book, but other times I would really be feeling what the character was feeling, and I would laugh, or, even sometimes, absolutely notably, I remember like crying as I wrote some sections thinking, what the heck am I doing? I'm writing it, I don't need to cry. But there were a lot of times where it just felt like bad writing to me, but I knew I had a plan. I knew what I wanted a reader to learn in each chapter. I wanted to get it written out so I could take a look at it, and for me, really happily, a lot of that was, I think, better than I felt it was as I was writing it. That was a lucky break.
You just kept going to the end.
I just kept going. I did. I started on page 1 and I went to the end, and I would just reread enough to pick up again the next day.
Yeah.
I would not go back.
So you had to ignore that feeling and just
I did because
keep going.
Yeah, because I'd set a plan and I was going to try it.
Well, that's good advice for anyone who's writing too.
Yeah.
Don't
People
listen
always
to
say,
that
how
voice.
much do you know before you start, or whatever. I mean, there's so many things that I didn't know were going to happen, or that got edited in or added, changed. But in very large measure, it starts exactly how I thought it was going to start. It moves at the rhythm I thought it was going to move, and it ends on the page, pretty much the page it's going to be on. And the book I'm working on now it's a more complex story, but I know every place it has to go, and I know in what order a reader needs to learn every single thing. I don't know how that's all going to happen. I know the last page, I can see it. And that does help me write through. Today was a bad writing day. Just total schlock. But I just keep going, because then maybe I'll get to a part that I like better, and then, in a few months when the whole thing's done, I can go back and fix that.
And who knows? You thought this was bad when you started writing it too.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
maybe it was.
I think it was pretty bad
Maybe it was a
today.
great day.
I think it was pretty bad. But...
And I'm not going to ask you about it, not until it's done, and then we can
Yeah.
have you back and we can ask you about it again.